Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, my name is Dr. Ian Phillips, and today we have some breaking news for you guys here today on tariffs. Now, Donald Trump is notorious for tariffs. Nobody likes tariffs more than Donald Trump does, and the United States has now just issued $81 billion in refunds after the Supreme Court ruled that those tariffs were illegal. Now, I don't know if this comes as a shocker to many of you guys. I know for me it did. I thought that he was within his presidential powers to issue these tariffs, as much as I disagree with him and I thought they were a terrible idea. And I don't think under 99.99% of the situations where we have tariffs, they should be allowed to continue in the sense, just morally speaking. But I thought legally he was within his rights. Turns out he was not. And the Supreme Court has now decided that they're going to give $81 billion in refunds to companies after the Supreme Court ruling here, saying that these tariffs were, in fact, illegal. Now, guys, this opens up a whole can of worms here, which we will discuss here in a little bit. But I first want to talk to you about what a tariff actually is, because a lot of people don't really understand what that means. To them, it's just some foreign concept floating in the ether somewhere. So a tariff, all that is it's a tax, and it's a tax that's artificial, right? So you just purposely, you make that tax, and it's a tax that becomes a de facto tax on your citizens, right? So think about it this way, right? You put a tariff on China, for instance, right? That means that it costs more money to bring goods into China. It's like an import tax kind of, right? It costs more money to bring those goods into China. Into the United States. And like the question then becomes is, do you think that the business will eat the price of that tariff, right? And the answer is absolutely fucking not. They're going to pass that cost down to you, right? So instead of let's say companies shipping over oranges let's use pineapples as an example. They're shipping over pineapples, and a pineapple used to cost $1, but now there's a 10% tariff on that. So now, do you think the business is going to say, all right, well, I'm going to eat into my profit margin here and keep charging you, the consumer, $1? No, they're going to charge you $1.10, and as a result, they're not going to be losing money. That's just not going to happen. They're never going to lose money. And maybe in some situations, they charge you $1.09 and they eat a slight little bit of the cost. I'm not saying that doesn't happen ever. But generally speaking, when there's a tariff, it's a de facto tax on your own citizens. So it's a tax on Americans. So that's bad enough. That's very, very terrible here. So tariffs you should try to avoid at all costs. Now, tariffs are particularly interesting with the United States because if you know anything about U.S. history here, the United States was literally founded on a hatred for tariffs. The United States hates tariffs. We hate tariffs. Like if you think about the Stamp Act, for example, or you think about, the Boston Tea Party, throwing tea into the harbor, they were all pissed off because their price of goods went up and they weren't getting that representation. And, say, well, why did they go up? Because of tariffs, right? The United States government was literally founded on a hatred for tariffs. And, people have somehow over the years forgotten that. We literally started an entire revolution over tariffs, but now we're getting taxed into oblivion, and everybody seems to forget that. I don't know why they seem to forget that. Maybe because our education system isn't that good, and people just don't really have the pressure behind them to understand these facts. But for some reason, again, it perpetuates, and we're now in a situation whereby we are getting just hit with these taxes. But it gets worse, right? So you can say, okay, well, we had the tariffs, they were deemed illegal. Thank God, the price of our goods can go down. And now, now, this is a problem, right? Because, the businesses, they were charging $110 and people were still buying, maybe a little bit less, but they were still, making some good money. So now they're like, the tariffs have gone away. You know what I could do? Before this equilibrium comes back with respect to the market, and I have to push my price down push my prices down a little bit instead of going back down from say $1.10 a pineapple down to $1. Maybe I can go down to $1.05. Maybe I can squeeze a little bit more money out of people until they really notice, and some other competition maybe comes into play. And if they don't, I can just keep charging $1.05 forever and getting more profit margin. Right. So that's a concern in itself. Right. But let's just ignore that for a second. Now we have to refund the companies which were already passing on that price down to the consumers. So they didn't even lose any money. The companies lost no money from the tariffs. And even if they did, it was only a very small amount, as I told you. And they're not going to charge you, $1 again for that pineapple. They might charge you $1.09. Right. But they're not going to be charging you, again, much less than that, because they're not going to be eating that cost themselves. And so as a result, now we have to pay them back after they were already passing that cost down onto us. So in essence, we pay for these tariffs 2 times, right? Because again, where's that money going to come from? Where's that $81 billion coming from? It's coming from your tax dollars. Your tax dollars are going to be paying for this mistake on behalf of Donald Trump and his whole tariff bit, right? Which is one of the worst things that he was running his campaign on. I mean, for his second term, he said, like, I'm going to be like just the tariff guy in chief here. I'm going to do tariffs. It's like, because we need to protect American jobs, bro. And we need to protect our own domestic industries, bro. And there's like an argument to be made that sometimes that works. You know, like if you were to put like a 500% tariff on something, it's like, yeah, like you're probably going to have to make it at home. It's like, we're generally speaking, for the types of tariffs that we're talking about, that does not happen. You're not really protecting American industry. And even still, why would you want to do that? I understand that like there's an argument to be made that you want to protect jobs, and in some cases that is warranted. Again, you know, there is that 1% of the time, you know, that you might want to have a tariff to try to protect your own industry. It's like, but generally speaking, all you're doing is you're raising the prices on your own citizens. So their quality of life goes down as a consequence of the tariffs. So it really makes no sense here. And now we have to pay for it twice. So not only are our tax dollars going to refund the companies that already passed along the cost down to us, it's like, but now we've also set precedent moving forward. So now if a tariff is ever deemed to be illegal, now maybe, you know, these companies can end up getting refunds for it, which is just absolutely diabolical. It's depraved. It's horrible. It is not something that we want to have going on in our country. But that's, again, where our country is at, and it's not going to get better anytime soon as far as I am concerned. So you guys should be against tariffs. If you're America first, you should be against tariffs. If you're not America first and you believe that, you know, the consumers themselves and only billionaires should be screwed over, and then the billionaires and corporations should be the ones to triumph over this, and you know, and that Donald Trump is, you know, some mastermind here with respect to these tariffs, it's like, well then, you know, hey, look, I don't know how I can help you here, but what I do know is that if you did enjoy the video, you guys should hit that like and subscribe button, because we're almost at 500 subscribers. You guys can follow me on social media at Ian Phillips USA, and my name is Dr. Ian Phillips, and we will talk to you later, guys. Peace.